We are looking at chapter number 3, money and credit. Money and credit, पैसा, मुद्रा और साख. In situations with high risk, credit might create further problems for the borrower. Explain. Whether a credit would be useful or not, it depends on various factors, number of factors. Risk being involved, whether there is some support against a loss, the terms of credits. So it is a fact that in situations where the risks are quite high, the credit might create further problems for the borrower. The condition of the borrower may further deteriorate. For instance, credit taken by a farmer for cultivation, it might create problem for the farmer. How? The crop production involves high cost on inputs like the high yielding variety seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, irrigation. There are so many things. So farmers generally take loans at the beginning of the season of cropping and repay the loan after the harvest is done. But if it happens that the crop fails, that is, the failure of crop makes the loan repayment impossible now. In order to pay the loan, sometimes they have to sell a part of their land, farmers. So this kind of situation becomes worse for a farmer who is already in debt and he fluctuates in the debt trap. The incidences of farmer suicide, especially in Maharashtra, these are the present and burning examples of the situation not only in Maharashtra but various other places in our country. So whether a credit would be useful or not, it depends on various risks involved in the situation. How does money solve the problem of double coincidence of wants? Explain with example of your own. This double coincidence of wants, it happens in barter system. So in a barter system, when the goods are directly exchanged because there is no money being involved, double coincidence of wants is a necessary and essential feature. By serving as a medium of exchanges, money removes the need for double coincidence of wants and also the difficulties which are associated with the barter system. For instance, if it is no longer required or necessary for the farmer to look for a book publisher so anyone who will buy his cereals at the same time sell him the books, means they both should need each other's stuff. All he has to do is to find a buyer for his cereals. And if he has exchanged his cereal for money, mudra or paisa, he can purchase any goods or services which he needs. So this is because money acts as a medium of exchange. How do banks mediate between those who have surplus money and those who need money? Now the banking system or the bank accept the deposits from people who have surplus money, and also bank pay a stipulated amount of interest on the deposits. But bank keeps 15% of a small portion in India of their deposits. All the depositors, if the money is combined, just take 15% of that amount. This 15% is kept in the bank as cash. Now this is kept as a provision to pay the depositors who might come to withdraw their money from their accounts in the bank any day. Now they use the major portion of the deposits or nikshep to extend loans to those who are borrowers or who require loan or who need money. So in this way, bank mediates between those who have surplus money and those who need money. So if this is a bank, you go and you deposit. Now this money is given to those who wants the money, that is the borrower. So it is an intermediary between those who deposits and those who borrow the money or take the loan. Look at a 10 rupee note. Actually, you can look at any note, all the Indian notes. What is written on the top? Can you explain this statement? Reserve Bank of India and guaranteed by the government. What are written on the top? So in India, the RBI or Reserve Bank of India, it issues the currency notes, all the currency notes which we have, on behalf of the central government. The statements, this means that the currency is authorized and it is guaranteed by the central government or the government of India. That is, the Indian law legalizes this rupee or use of this 10 rupee as a medium of payment that cannot be refused by anyone in setting transaction in India. Why do we need to expand formal sectors or formal sources of credit in India? See, there are two sources which provides credit in India, or people take the credit from two sources: formal sources and the informal sources. The formal sources include bank and the Sahkari Samiti or the cooperatives, and the informal sectors, the money lenders, your friends, your relatives, etc., they come under informal sources. So we need to expand the formal sources of credit. There are certain reasons. Compared to the formal lenders, most of the informal lenders like the money lenders or the sahukar charge much higher rates as loans, like 3 to 5% per month, and this goes up to 36% an year. And if you go to a bank, they may charge say 8% for an year. So this is quite less. And besides this higher interest rate, the informal lenders, they may impose very tough conditions. For instance, they make the farmer promise that whatever you are growing, you will sell the crop to me at a lower price. And there is no such condition in formal sector. The bank and the Sahkari Samiti or the cooperatives will not ask you for that. Informal lenders do not treat well with the borrowers, but if you go to formal sector, you will be treated properly. The Reserve Bank of India supervises the functioning of the formal sectors, banks and the cooperative societies, while there is no organization that can supervise the credit activities of the lenders, because these lenders are informal. It can be anyone. You can be a lender also. Loans taken by poor people from informal lenders, sometimes these people may lend up in, or they may come in the debt trap because of the very high interest rate of this kind. The formal sources of credit in India still meets only about half of the total credit needs of the rural people. So now it becomes very important. It is necessary that the formal sources of credit expand their lending, especially in the Gramin Kshetra or rural areas, so that the dependence on the informal sources of credit reduces, as this will also help in the development of the country and the development of the economy. What is the basic idea behind the SHG or special help or self-help groups for the poor? Explain in your own words. So the basic idea behind this self-help groups is to provide financial resource for the poor through organizing the rural poor, especially the women, into small self-help groups. They also provide timely loans at a responsible interest rate without any Ranadhar or collateral or any asset. What are the main objectives? Let us summarize them of SHG. First is to reorganize or the organize rural poor, especially women, into SHG, small self-help groups, and to collect savings of their members, and to provide loans without any collateral or any asset, to provide timely loans for a variety of purposes, and to provide loans at responsible rate of interest and easy terms, that is the less rate of interest, and the terms also are quite easy. Also, the objective is to provide platform to discuss and act on a variety of social issues like the education, like the health, nutrition, domestic violence, etc. What are the reasons why the banks might not be willing to lend to certain borrowers? So the bank may not give the loan or might not be willing to lend certain borrowers due to certain reasons. First of all, bank requires certain documents, proper documents and collateral. These are the assets as security against loans. Some person failed to meet this requirement. So the terms and condition of the loan, some people might not be able to fulfill it. The borrowers who have not paid previous loans, the banks might not be willing to lend them further. The banks might not be willing to lend those entrepreneurs who are going to invest in the business with high risk. There is a chance of losing also the money. So one of the principal objectives of the bank is to earn more profits after meeting a number of expenses. For this purpose, it has to adopt judicious loan and investment policies which ensure fair and stable return on the funds and for the government and banking sector. In what ways does the Reserve Bank of India supervise the functioning of banks, and why is this necessary? So you can say Reserve Bank of India is the father or monitor or the principal bank of all the banks in our country. So the RBI monitors the amount of money that banks loan out and also the amount of cash balance which is maintained by the banks. RBI ensures that banks give out loan not just to the business which are profiteering, but also to the small cultivators, small scale industries and small borrowers. Periodically, banks are supposed to submit information. There is audit being done to the RBI on the amounts being lent, to whom they are being lent, the money is given and at what rate of interest. So this monitoring is necessary in order to ensure that the equality is preserved in the financial sector and that small industries are also given an outlet to grow. And this is also done to make sure that the banks do not loan out more money as they are supposed to, as this can lead to situation like the Great Depressions, what happened in USA in 1930s, which greatly affected not only United States but the whole world economy. See, I'll tell you one thing, wherever this money is involved, there are always chances of fraud and some other things which are not legal. So you have to have certain bank or certain authority which should look into this matter. So this is what RBI does. Analyze the role of credit for development. So credit, that is taking loan or taking money, plays a very crucial role in the developing country or the country's development. By sanctioning loans, disbursing loans, giving loans to developing industries and trade, banks provide them with the necessary aid for improvement. And this leads to increased production, employment and the profits. But caution must be exercised in case of high risk so that losses do not occur. This advantage of loans also needs to be manipulated and it should be kept under an administrative hold because these loans from the informal sector include high interest rate that may be harmful for the farmers especially than good. For this reason, it becomes very important that the formal sector gives out more loans to the borrowers and so the borrowers are not duped by or harassed by the moneylenders and they can ultimately contribute to the nation development and the Indian economy. Now here is a person called Manav. He needs a loan to set up small businesses. So on what basis will Manav decide whether to borrow from the bank or the moneylender? So he may borrow money from bank or from the moneylender. You have to discuss. So Manav can decide whether to borrow the money from the bank or the moneylender because he has to set up a small business on the basis of the terms of credit. What is the rate of interest? What is the requirement availability of collateral, that is the asset required or papers required, documents required, that is the documentation required by the banker. What is the mode of repayment, what interest he has to pay and what is the time limit of repayment. So depending upon all these factors, especially if the repayment is easier, Manav has to decide whether he has to borrow from the bank or the moneylender. So it is always advisable to take the loan from the bank rather than going to the moneylender. In India, about 80% of farmers are small farmers who need for cultivation. Why might banks be unwilling to lend to small farmers? So banks might be or might not be giving or might not be willing to lend small farmers because they don't have collateral securities. A poor farmer will not have certain things to show that, okay, if I don't pay, you can take my assets or collateral and you can liquidate it and you can be refunded by what you have given me. So they don't have any collateral security to deposit in the bank. So some of these farmers, they are not in the position of even paying loan due to already existing loans. What are the other sources from which the small farmers can borrow? So the other sources, that is the informal sources of borrowing, are moneylenders, employers, self-help group and the landlords. Explain with an example how the terms of credit can be unfavorable for the small farmer. So if a person takes loans, say some credit from his or her landlord on the basis of some security of his or her land, at the end he or she will not be able to pay the loan, then landlord can sell land and get his money back. So this is an example of how the term of credit can be favorable for the smaller farmer. We can take one more example of how these terms of credit can be unfavorable. Because what can happen that these terms of credit may be so rigid, or some moneylender may give in such a huge interest rate that the interest rate becomes higher or the interest paying is higher than the actual amount. That is the problem. The smaller or small farmer will be caught up in a trap, debt trap. Suggest some ways by which small farmers can get cheap credit. So small farmers or the poor farmers, you can say, those who are not having enough money, they can get cheap credit by the SHGs or self-help groups from bank, and they can repay the loan easily after 3 to 4 years. The rate of interest is also low as compared to other sources of credit. So self-help group is the answer. You can give the answer like this. Fill in the blanks. Majority of the credit needs of the dash households are met from informal sectors or sources. So this is poor. Dash costs of borrowing increase the debt burden. So high cost of borrowing. Dash issues currency notes on the behalf of the central government. So you can write RBI or Reserve Bank of India. Bank charge a higher interest rate on loans than what they offer on dash. So these are deposits. Dash is an asset that the borrower owns and uses as a guarantee until the loan is repaid to the lender. So this is collateral or asset, you can write. Collateral. Choose the most appropriate answer. In a small, or you can say help groups, most of the decision regarding savings and loan activities are taken by, the answer is members. So answer is B. Formal sources of credit does not include, so formal includes banks and cooperatives, that is Sahakari Samitis. Employers are not, so C is the answer. This is the project work. This table shows people in a variety of occupations in urban areas. What are the purposes for which the following people might need loan? So then we have to classify the people into two groups based on whom you think might get a loan from the bank or who might not. What is the criterion that you have used for the classification? So let us see what we can answer here. The construction worker, he may take the loan to meet daily living expenses. Graduate student who is a computer literate, he may pursue higher education or to set up a computer, say, literacy or some shop or anything related to computer. A person employed in government service for some wedding, for making house, or for the kids' education. Migrant laborer in Delhi in order to buy some house or daily needs also. Household maid to meet living expenses, daily needs. Small traders to buy new machinery. Auto rickshaw driver maybe to buy a new auto rickshaw or even a taxi. A worker whose factory has closed down So to meet living expenditure while still unemployed. Now those who might get a loan or those who might not get a loan, so all those are educated, they might have some collateral or they might be able to repay, they might get a bank loan. So the graduate student, person employed in government service, small traders, auto rickshaw driver, these are the people who might get a loan or a bank loan. Those who might not get a bank loan, or all those who are not able to produce the collateral, or they don't have enough content there to show, or they don't have enough backup. So construction worker, migrant laborer in Delhi, household maid, and a worker whose factory has closed down. These are those who might not get bank or back from bank loan. Now the criteria is, which we have employed is classification is simply that people who may repay the loan, they have the salary certificate, they are educated, or they have some collateral, they will be given bank loan. Otherwise, those who are not able to provide any collateral, or they don't have enough money, or they don't have enough education, they might not be able to pay the loan. Now this is the multiple choice questions, and we'll be taking this in the next discussion. Till then, thank you so much and take care of yourself.